Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. It's one of the great blessings of this congregation is it's so hard to get service started because you're talking so much. But it is a great blessing that we love each other. We love each other so much. We love to be around each other. That's the point of Christian family. It's how God designed it. We are blessed this morning. Well, we're blessed to be here this morning on the Lord's Day to start our week off. We're blessed this morning also to have the Middletons here, Alan and Colin, to talk to us. Specifically, they're gonna take us through a service this morning, but they're going to specifically talk to us about their effort in Africa, Tanzania specifically, but in other areas, I think expanding, working on it. I don't want to take your thunder out, so. But we're going to talk about Bucket by Bucket. Bucket by Bucket is one of the missionary works that we support, and it is a very unique work and a very exciting work. So it's really great to have Alan and Colin here. So Alan's going to take us through class this morning. I think this morning we're going to talk about Bucket by Bucket and the work, and then have a good sermon on the Lord's Word for our service afterwards. So thank you very much for Alan being here, and I'll turn it over.
Am I good? Okay. Make sure I follow my instructions I got from Steve. Well, as Larry said, here to report on the work a little bit. You guys support me. I'm not sure who all knows. I think the last time I was here, I was actually just presenting the work in Africa, not necessarily bucket by bucket. And so we're going to start from the beginning and walk through to today. And it's class. So if I say something, stop me. We'll talk about it. I'm a pretty informal guy. So Bucket by Bucket is a well charity on the physical side. That's what it is. We put in water wells, but we put them in a way that it is very much a spiritual work. It is an evangelistic work. And we'll go through our story here in a minute. But we work right now in Tanzania, East Africa. Very soon we'll be doing a little bit of work in Uganda and Zambia. But navigating African governments is no small feat. So we're approaching this slowly. And the way we're able to do that, and I'll show you a picture at the end, is we're getting our own water well rig. We haven't drilled a hole in 2 years. And the reason we haven't is we've been getting enough money together to get ourselves rig, because we've been contracting every well, which is very expensive, especially when they realize the money's coming from America. You get a special price. So we've been doing that, and we'll go through the sites and the work, but the future is tremendous for this work, and I like the word Larry used, unique. It stands out a little bit amongst a lot of the efforts the Brotherhood have going on. There are a lot of people in the Brotherhood putting in water wells, and it's a great humanitarian work. There's a lot of people in the Brotherhood doing evangelistic work in Africa and other places, and I want, if I can remember to, I'll talk about before we get done where this model fits, because it doesn't just fit in sub-Saharan Africa. It fits in several places, and that's from information I pulled from the World Health Organization. But again, that's that little yellow thing up there. That's Tanzania. It's a pretty good sized country. It's bigger, good bit bigger than Texas. It's not near as big as the Sudan or the Congo, but it's still a good sized country. So let's start from the beginning. The way Bucket was founded, and some of y'all know this story and some of you don't, is we have been in Northport, which I'm struggling with the transition. I'm no longer at Northport. I took a job move and we're moving to Anniston. But Northport's been involved in the work in Tanzania since about 2004. In 2015, we were getting ready for a group trip. And before we go on those trips, people come up to me all the time, and I was directing the trips. I've handed that work over to somebody else now, and they put money in my pocket. And anybody who's ever given me a check knows, if you give me a check, I don't look at it. I just stick it in my pocket and I'll look at it later. I just don't want to be like, what'd you do? I just think that's a little rude. So I just stick it in my pocket and go on. Well, brother walked up to me, stuck a check in my pocket. Do something really good with this. I said, okay, we will. He looked, kind of grabbed me by the forearm a little bit and said, no, do something really good with this. Okay, we got you. I get home and open that check up, and it's a $10,000 check. Well, when people give me $5, $20, $100, we're going to buy Bibles with that. That's our Bible money. $10,000, we don't even have a building big enough to hold that many Bibles over there. So what are we going to do with this? So about 2 weeks before we left. And so I started praying, started talking to some people there, gathered as much information. Like, what do we do with this check? What do we do with this money? And we decided at Umtuwambu, Mosquito River, the congregation where we work out of, we radiate out of there for our congregational work, for our evangelistic work, to put a water well in. It's right on the edge of what they call the Maasai area. It's very arid, very brown, very hard scrabble ground kind of area. And so we decided to put a well there. So we're going to put a dug well in, and it's been a learning curve. We'll talk about that as we go. And so that's what we're going to do. So made arrangements before we got there to meet with some well diggers. And when we got there, day one, I met with the well diggers. We negotiated a price, and I spec'd out what we wanted because I wanted a nice well. So I wanted it dug, lined, capped, the whole 9 yards. And so they came and started digging. And let me tell you, for somebody from America who works in an industrial base, this was interesting, because the day after we negotiated with the main guy, these three guys showed up in shorts. That was their uniform, shorts and flip-flops and a shirt. And they had a gunny sack and a bucket with them. And in that bucket were 2 coils of rope. And in that gunny sack was a shovel with the handle cut off, a pick with the handle cut off, about a 2-pound maul, and a cold chisel. They dumped it out on the ground. And they drew a 3-foot circle on the ground. And I thought, okay, here we go. Because, if we're going to dig a well, there's some machinery going to show up. Well, they are the machinery. So we went off and did our Bible studies, and they started digging. And every day we got back to the church at the end of the day, they had a little deeper. Well, these guys are amazing. They dug 63 feet straight down. And you see how much shoring is in that hole. None. You see the ladder in that hole. None. They ran in and out of the hole like cat squirrels. They'd go down there and pick and dig, and they'd get enough in the bucket, and the guy on top would take the rope and pull the bucket up, dump it out, as you saw in the first picture there. And that's how they dug the well. Needless to say, they didn't finish digging the well before we left. We were only there for 14 days. But by the time they left, they were so far down in that hole, we couldn't see them anymore. we'd get there at the end of the day and look over in the hole, and you could hear them tink, 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 pecking away down there. And they just kept digging. So we get home and we get a report. They found water. They went a little further for a reservoir, and they had a good well. But the results are what we wanted. We had good, clean water coming out of the well. And that's how they cap it. If you notice that guy coming out of that well, again, no ladder. That's how they did all their work. And so obviously they're young too. They're very fit. But that was our first well. But we got a good well. We got good water out of that well. So we were very happy. Well, after, we were home for a month or two, then we start getting reports of many, many villagers coming to get water. And many of those villagers are doing Bible studies now, and they've built relationships with the members there. There's always somebody at the church building. It's just their lifestyle's quite a bit different from ours. And so that's exciting. We're introducing people to the gospel because they're coming to the church building to get water. And then conversion starts happening. And then a lot of conversion starts happening. And souls are being added to the church daily. And it's amazing. And I'm the kind of guy, I get something in my brain that's hard to get it out. And I'm laying in bed at night thinking, how do we repeat this? Because, I don't have $10,000 laying around every time I go to Africa that I can just go put another well in. How do we repeat this? How do we repeat this? Well, much study, much prayer, much thought, whole lot of reading online. And 2 years later, Bucket by Bucket was founded. We got registered with IRS. We got incorporated, all the legal papers signed and dotted. And so we began, and we started digging more wells and drilling some wells. This is actually at Mungary. We ended up losing this well. It's the only well we've truly lost. But it's due to vandalism, of all things. I can't imagine. Here's something that's going to help my family, but we're going to tear it up. But they did 3 times, and we finally just quit putting money into it. This was our first drilled well, and the reason it was drilled was because they started digging and they hit rock. And I'll give them, because the hole is still there where they started digging, and they started hitting big rock. And they just kept banging on that rock with sledgehammers and trying, and they just couldn't dig a well. So we got the drilling rig to come in, and they drilled this well. And it was successful. We got water. We got clean water. And in spite of losing this well produced for the Lord while it was in function. So I still call it a success. Disappointing, disheartening, yes, but a success nonetheless. So this is kind of how we got started. This is where we started. We started with a few wells. And the way we worked up till now is we'd put in a well and start gathering money. People would send us money. You guys support us. Other congregations support us. A lot of individuals support us. Got one little lady that I can't remember her name right at the moment. She's been with us from the beginning. And she has sent us $30 a month, $1 a day for 2015, 17 to now, however long that is, 8 years. And that's how we worked. So we would put 1 or 2 wells a year in, depending on the money we had coming in. So we continued to do that. This is at Arusha. This is a little bit bigger rig. That was a really good well. Lots of water. Actually, when we hit water, it was under pressure. It was one of those pockets that had a little, and so it was quite something to see when we hit it. That's Arusha. They wanted a hand pump. They didn't want an electric pump. We've since gone back, added a tower, put in an electric pump, and upgraded their system. So what we do is put in water wells. Why we do it is to save souls. It's to help spread the gospel. That's what we're all about. That's what I'm all about. And I have a saying, and a friend of mine in Northport picked it up, and we use it all the time. The goal is souls. Always has been, always will be. The Lord came to this earth to seek and save the lost. The goal, God's goal is souls, and it always has been. And we're trying to do that to the best of our ability and give him all the glory for it. What time do y'all stop at? 1/4 or 20 till? Okay. This is Magia Chai. It's Tea River, basically. They had a well, but it had become unfunctional for them. So we went in and redid the well and put in the tanks. And now they have a tank that serves the congregation and the congregation's garden. They have quite a good sized garden there. And then they also have the other spigot the villagers come to and get their water. And again, they've added on to their building since we put a well in there. So the work is successful. The work is tremendous. We're small. We're gathering money. That first well where those guys were running in and out of that hole and dug 63-foot hole got contaminated from close to surface water. And not to put too fine a point on that, but everybody there has an outhouse. So the water got contaminated. So we had to go, we went back and we drilled a safe well, and that's where that is. So again, a rented rig, cost was somewhere around $15,000 all in. 2/3 of that cost was putting a hole in the ground. And that'll mean more to you here in a minute. So think about that. We've spent $15,000 on a rig and roughly 10,000 of it's drilling. This is at Talawanda. This is the one and only dry hole we ever drilled. We have a geological survey we pay for. That's part of that 15 grand. It's a little over $2,000 to do it. And the guy comes up from Dar es Salaam with all his equipment and does a geological survey to try to avoid having a dry hole. We drill to the desired depth. We hit mud. The guy goes, all we can do is keep drilling. So we just drilled till we ran out of sucker rod and we never hit water. So apparently what he was picking up was that mud down there. So we did go back though and put in a water collection system. I think those are 10,000 liter tanks. Can't see. Those 5,000 liter tanks. So those are 5,000 liter tanks. We're going back this fall to put in 5 more. That'll give them enough water at Talawanda to pretty much make it through the dry season. Let me take a moment and explain that. Yes, ma'am.
All of these wells put on church property.
Yes. I may not have said that specifically. That's where we put them. We put them in. Right.
And they're not, villages are not charged a fee to come get water. Well, over there, a lot of times you get charged to try to go get water. Talawanda's not exactly, it does something different.
No, it's a preaching school there, but there's also a church there. So it's kind of dual purpose. There is a preaching school at Talawanda, and there's a lot of these little preaching schools around Tanzania. The brethren have started. So Talawanda is a little different because it's a preaching school and it's an agricultural school. They're teaching preachers to teach the gospel, and they're also teaching them to do woodworking, to grow crops, to be self-sustainable. So it's a really good work. And so we supporting them fits our model. We went to put a well in there, and we had the story we had. But yeah, Cindy's exactly right. We put these wells on church property so far, with the exception of one. We still have to navigate Tanzanian government, and that'll come toward the end. But we did one at their request at a school. So this is Mbagala. It's our only urban well. Most of our wells are country churches because we felt like, you make decisions in a bucket or in a box. And we felt like, well, country churches are going to fit our model better. Well, I was coerced into this a little bit. And then I met with the elders, one of the few churches over there to have elders. And I was so impressed by them. I told Ellie, I said, yeah, okay, we're putting a well in here. So we did. And their building was probably 2/3 of the width of this room. Okay. And about this deep. Pretty good sized church for Tanzania anyway. And when we met with them, and they had a little small concrete block building where they did like a daycare for the community. So that was their work. And they're pretty landlocked. They're limited in space. Well, since the well has gone live and they use it extremely well, they've added a third onto their building. Their building is now probably a little wider than yours, about the same depth. But the little daycare, which is over on the side of the yard, of that picture would be to that side of the yard, has grown tremendously. And they put in a couple of showers for the kids. And those kids, I mean, they got clean water available to them while they're at daycare, and they get a shower. They don't get that at home because they don't have. This is in the middle of a city of 9 million people, and they don't have water. So it's staggering to think about. So urban wells are now on my list. But we'll continue to do that as well when we can and when it makes sense. This is at Mwanza, and here's another oddity. This is on the shores of Lake Victoria. Beautiful, beautiful place. Their well is a dug well, and it goes dry every dry season. We've deepened it 2 or 3 times, and it keeps going dry. How water is not there on the edge of a lake, I don't know. But when we get our rig, we're going back to Mwanza and drilling that well like we did Mosquito River and give them year-round water. And there's a lot of reasons for that. 1, you need water every day. And 2, it really enhances the congregations to be self-sustaining. And one of the ways it does that, all right, this is our map. We'll pause here. Sorry, I got out of whack. So our first well was here at Umtuumbu. There's Maji Chai, which we looked at the Arusha. We'll see a picture of it later. There's Imbagala, that's down in Dar. Talawanda is the preaching school. Over here is Maloo and Izutu and Bambula and Kazabizio and Mwanza. So just give you an idea where stuff is in the country. That's, how many is that? We have going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 active sites right now. We've done 15 projects, but some of that's repeats. 10 active sites with our own rig. This is why this is so important. And with proper funding, we can probably do 6 a year easily. So in 8 years, we're blessing 10 communities. They're growing like crazy. In 8 years down the road, we're going to be in the 30s, 40s of these. So I'm very excited about the way this is going to work out. But that's our projects, our layout. This is at just for reference, this is at Mbambula. Mbambula is the first, it was a dug well. It was the first congregation to start large gardening. And they've used that to bless the widows in the community, to help the preacher have an income, be more self-sustainable, and to give the poor families in the congregation access to food year-round, plus clean water. And that well is still a viable well. It's apparently in a really good spot. It has not been contaminated. We do test our wells pretty much annually. Sometimes we may go 18 months. It just depends on when Ellie can get around and get some samples. This is at Kazabizio. I wish the other shot were on here, but I couldn't find it on my computer. Behind that lady, those 2 ladies, is a line of ladies. And in their culture, it's the women and young girls' job to go get, and this is something that really touched my heart. It's their job to go get water every day. Well, if you can imagine in the dry season and they got to walk 3, 4, 5 miles to get water, those girls aren't going to school. Their future is set. Okay. When there's a well in the village that they can freely go get water at, and they don't have to walk to the nearest non-dried up river or creek every day. Many of them come get water in their school uniforms and get back home and then scurry off to school. So that's a bonus we didn't really plan on, that we've been very excited about with this work. Here's the fruit. And this, I've told Larry this multiple times. This is what gets me jazzed up. This is what made me lay awake at night. How do we do this? Every well, no matter where it's at, no matter the makeup of the congregation, no matter what, is producing souls. Because people are going to come get water. They live in a culture that they have to go get water. They go to the church to get water. And we have taught and taught and taught. No strings attached, no money. Somebody wants to come get water, they can come get water. And they've experienced some of the other denominational churches drilling wells, and they charge for water. Members of the community who can afford to get a well, and they charge for water. And it's amazing to them that we would put a well in and not charge for water. And so they start talking to our members about, what are y'all about? What's different about y'all? And the gospel spread. And this happens. And this is at a Kazabizio, and you notice behind them, kind of hard to see because of the picture, all that vegetation is garden. Now, I was there when they were putting the tower up. The well was already drilled, and they were putting the tower up to put the water tank on. And it's just hard scrabble ground, guys. It is like National Geographic or anything you've ever seen on TV. It's like that. It's brown, it's rocks, it's thorns, the whole property. And when Ellie sent me a picture, I've got another picture, I think later on, of the whole property in a garden. I was shocked. That's a lot of work. I don't know if any of y'all ever turned a fresh field with a shovel and a hoe, but that's a lot of work. And they had done it. They cleared the rocks. They had cleared the acacia bushes, the thorn bushes, and again, took full use of it. They use it for evangelistic means. And it just keeps happening. You know, you're reading the Bible in the book of Acts, and they added to the church daily. Well, from time to time, this is what's happening. I know we go over there for campaign, and we just do evangelistic work. Every day you're studying the Bible, there's somebody somewhere getting baptized. They're very receptive to the gospel. They believe the Bible. They're not argumentative about it. It's a very refreshing thing to do. But I left that picture in there because that building next to it right there, that's the tower for the water tank. So that's why they have the baptistry. It's a portable baptistry. It breaks down. It's made out of canvas and pipe. But that's what we're about. That's why we do what we do. This is at Mosquito River. Interesting place to preach. That's the stage. The baptistry is right here. So when you preach at Mosquito River, watch your step. We've only had a couple of people step off in it, but people have. But they did that because they wanted to emphasize how important it is. Because over there are denominations over there teaching. There are individuals over there with their own opinions over there teaching. And many people downplay the importance of baptism. And one of the things they did when they built their building was put the baptistry right there. Because when people come in, why is that there? And they can tell them because it's that important. And so I appreciate that. But baptisms for us can be an anomaly. We rejoice greatly because they don't happen very often. For them, sometimes they happen every day. Sometimes more than once a day. But the neat thing is they rejoice all the same. I had one lady I studied with. I didn't end up studying with her to the end, but the guy who did told me at the end of the study, she said she wanted to be baptized right now. And he said, well, why right now? Because they were a long way off. And she goes, because what I read, they had gone through Acts and the examples of conversion. She goes, they rejoice after, and I want to rejoice. That kind of stuff just gets to me. There's Arusha. That's where we went back and put the tower in. You can see the tank back in the background. That's the church building. But that's their gardens. And Isaiah Isaac is a friend of mine. At that congregation, he used to be one of our interpreters and was always responsible for getting our buses lined up and stuff for transport. But he's preaching there now, and he has done a tremendous work there. He actually has built up such a reputation with that congregation in that community that he goes to an elementary school and gets a classroom for an hour a day and teaches Bible. I think that's just fantastic. And he was the one that wanted the well upgraded. He says, the reason they didn't want to pump in a tower is because that raises their electric bill. And he's like, we'll figure that out. We need to be able to service this community better. And so they have. There's some tomato plants at Casabizio, I think. Maybe in Bambula. That's in Bambula. But they're using these wells. That's Casabizio. That's the picture I was telling you about. If I had to, I wish I had an inkling they were going to do that. I'd have took a before and after picture. Because I'm telling you, you would not believe how rough that ground looked. And they turned it into that. There's no lack of want to work with the Tanzanians. There's no lack of enthusiasm. And they give God the credit for everything. And my sermon this morning is going to be all about glorifying God. And we'll talk about that a little bit and as it affects this work. Now, I can't do it. I can't go over there every time we drill a well. I can't go over there every time we have to meet with the government. I can't. So Ellie Martin, Ellie Njulumi, but Martin to those of us who don't speak Swahili, is my guy on the ground. He's a member of the church, been a member of the church for years. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Cy Stafford. Cy kind of was pioneering in that work over there. We lost Cy a few years ago, but Ellie was his right-hand man. And when I called him and told him, described the work to him, he was all in. And so he oversees the projects, navigates the overly complicated government stuff, and keeps us running over there. That's Naima, and I call her Irene. The way they use their vowels, it's Irene, but it's spelled Irene. And that's our office. Our office is the end of a container. To be a licensed NGO, to be a recognized NGO in Tanzania, you have to have dedicated office space. It's kind of odd. You got to have at least one computer. You got to have at least one copier. All right. And you have to have 3 employees. So Ellie, Naima, and Irene. Naima is Ellie's wife. So we're getting a twofer on that one. But she handles a lot of the courier type work. They'll compile a bunch of stuff, and her and Ellie, or just her, will go meet with the government officials and give them the paperwork and that sort of thing. Irene is really our office staff. She takes care of the day-to-day. The requirements for accounting for the money is very, very, very specific. So she spends every receipt Ellie gets, every nickel we spend has to be documented in a certain way and put in a book, and then the book has to be turned over in a report form at the end, at twice a year, as a matter of fact. And so she does that. But that's our staff there. That's our office space. And we talked a while ago about getting on drilling rig. I've kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, but there you go. Somebody gave me a $10,000 check, which happens every so often, every other year or so. Somebody will do that. The orange and blue one is kind of what I could do with it. I could do 2/3 of a well and have to go find $5,000 more today to do that. Going forward, once we get our rig, somebody walks up to me and gives me a $10,000 check. I can do 2 wells, and then if I got that extra 5, I can do 3 wells. So our pace is going to pick up tremendously. So the economics make sense. And there's a weird clause in the Tanzanian tax laws, and I've talked to enough people now, I believe it. At first I didn't really, but we can redo our charter over there. One here won't change, and become what they call a business-oriented NGO. And we can actually go out and drill wells for people that can afford it with our rig when we don't have a well to dig on a church property. And then all that money goes back into the organization. So the potential is there to become almost or completely self-sustaining in Tanzania, which is exciting to me, because going back to our world map, I wish I'd have put another one in here. This model fits all of sub-Saharan Africa. This model fits Southeast Asia. And when I first got approached by some folks and some brethren in Cambodia about this. I was like, yeah, but there's water everywhere in Southeast Asia. It's not drinkable water everywhere in Southeast Asia. They grow a lot of crops. They grow a lot of rice. Rice fields get sprayed and fertilized and things like that. So the water's not good because it all ends up running together. So they need wells in Southeast Asia. So this model fits, and the World Health Organization classifies sub-Saharan Africa, and there's other places, but the big areas, sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America through the Andes as economic water scarcity. What that means is there's water there, but the average person can't afford to go get it, can't even come close to affording to go get it. So that's where we come in. We can come in, put a well on churchyard, and make things happen. That is our rig. That is the actual machine that we're having refurbished and built in India as we speak. It's about 70% done. If you could have seen it before they started, it's something we would tow to the scrapyard and leave there. But they've gone through it. They've welded the chassis up. They've put a new motor and drivetrain in it. They're adding the compressors and all of the stuff needed for the drilling rig. And so it's a 250-meter rig. So that's about 750 feet. More than that, actually, because a meter's a little bigger in the yard. But so that's the rig we're getting. We're very excited about it. We can't wait. Hopefully toward the end of the month, we'll get it. That's our website, front page of our website. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram. And as we start using our machine, that traffic should pick up, and there'll be a lot more to follow and keep up with. We got just a few minutes left. I'm going to let this play, and then we'll do a little question and answers. If I can do this. Yeah, there we go. This is let me pause it. What'd I do, Steve? Went too far. All right, let me pause it. This is at the school. Remember I said we did one well, it wasn't at church. When the government came to us and said, look, we're in a bind. We got a school we got to have water at. There's over 1,000 kids at this elementary school, and they have 0 on-site water. From time to time, they get a truckload when somebody can sponsor it, but most of the time they have no water. So we went there, we put in a well, put in a tower and a tank and all this. This is the day we turned it on. Now, our kids get excited for birthdays and Christmas because we get them really nice gifts. I don't know when the last time I saw an American child this excited. And I messed it up. Now, I'm back. There we go. I'm going to pause it here at a very place. But you see them, they're just going at it. And they had old water bottles and whatever they could find. All right, there it's. I want to pause it, but I don't know how. But you watch that one kid's face kind of in the middle when he turns back around. Just watch his face. That child will grow up knowing that the Lord's people came to his school and put in a well. So while it's not at a church building, and it's not the same thing we always do, I see fruit from this. I see tremendous fruit from this. That's the end of the presentation. Any questions? Comments? Yes, sir. I would say most of our wells are in the 90-meter area. What's that work out to? 180 feet? Something like that. The average drilled well. We did the one in Mwanza, we've re-deepened. It's a dug well. It's now at 90-something feet, and we're not going to dig it anymore. We're going to go back and drill that one. We thought we were going to have to at Magia Chai. We really did. And I've checked into that, and I wish I had a slide for it. There's a system that they developed in Southeast Asia where and we use it here. It's just fancier. It's gravel, like 3 grades of gravel. There's 2 grades of sand, and there's 2 grades of charcoal, and it takes everything out. They use it in Southeast Asia because it takes pesticides out. It's amazing to me. It's all natural. Something that, because anything we do, they have to be able to maintain. So yeah, we could buy a fancy water filtration system and haul it over there, but then they can't maintain it. So we haven't had to yet, but I've done the research. I actually bought the materials to build one in Northport, and then we ended up moving. So haven't done that yet, but I want to test run one here for a while. But if we do, we get a well and it's high sulfur or something like that, we'll do that.
Tanks on all of these places so they can get like water to. Do they have to water their farm or their plants?
Yes, and what they do, and we help them with this, and we teach them this, is anywhere there's a drilled well, generally we have power. Generally, there's a few exceptions to that. And so we put what we call a pressure tank. It's a tank on a tower. That's why there's a tower there, and that gives them water pressure. And then we put in drip irrigation. And drip irrigation is simply a very small orifice of water drips through. And that's how they water their garden. So they don't use a lot of water, but they use enough. You know, our way of gardening and watering is generally flooding stuff every time we need to pour the water to it. Well, they can't do that. They'd run their well dry. So they use drip irrigation. So that's how they do that. Now, that's why Arusha wanted a tower, because they had a hand pump. And it was great for people to come and get water, but it was very hard to maintain their gardens. Good question. I ain't got that question before. Well, that's hard to say. And the reason I say that is we've got 10 sites and there's 275 congregations in Tanzania. So, but that we know, and we've done the research, and it's going to service this many people. It's this size village. It's 3. We try to stay at least 3 ahead so that if something were to happen on the next one and have a little trouble with the local government, the government up there is very stratified, much like it is here, except they kind of have their own little kingdoms. The local government, yada, yada, yada. If we have trouble with that, we can just go to the number 2 or number 3 on the list. So I would say at all times 3. Sorry.
When Hank first came to the eldership and said, hey, we need to do this thing. We need to support them. And I started looking into it personally. I was blown away by a lot of things, but the thing that really blew me away was scale of baptism. And I don't want to put you on the spot or anything. I remember seeing numbers, percentages of baptisms in association with water wells. And for me, it was mind-blowing. And it was pretty obvious that this is a work that absolutely works for what our goal is.
Yeah.
So can you go into that?
I remember the slide you're talking about, that information. I've kind of lost it in the shuffle over the years, but it was about in the first year, because there's a bit of an arch there, obviously. In the first year, it works out to about an average size congregation over there was 50 people. You'll have 36 about baptism. So you'll have almost 100% increase in congregation. And then after that, it'll maintain at about 20%. And it's still, I mean, Mosquito River was put in 2015. And still, one of our elders from Northport went over a few years ago. I know we've run over time. And he asked the preacher there, he says, is the well still producing souls and stuff? I go, yeah. Oh, yes, brother. He goes, well, in the last 3 years, how many? He goes, oh, hard to say. And the other thing about Tanzania is the people are transient. They go where work is. They go where food is. They go where. He says, hard to say. He says, but many. And so Greg started throwing numbers out. And Greg said, well, more than 10 in 3 years? Oh, yeah, more than that. More than 20 in 3 years? He goes, oh, brother, more. He goes, more than 30? And Gasper just shook his head and go, much more. And so, yes, it's staggering. It blew me away. And it still, they surprised me. So I could stand up here and talk all day, but I know we got other things to do. Thank you for your time. Thank y'all for your support. This congregation is very dear to our hearts for a lot of reasons. But everybody can't give to something like this. Everybody's situation is different. But just remember Miss Valatree. That's the lady's name. $1 a day for 8 years. For a little bit, she's changed lives. The other thing I'll say is, y'all do a good job here congregationally. That may be the model you want to continue with. That's perfectly fine with us. And but in all times, your prayers are coveted. Thank you very much.